Alright, so in the last video we were stuck at getting the login URL to work properly. So it turns out you need to add the Facebook login product and enter the exact uh, redirect URL here. So from our routes we have the auth Facebook callback, and another thing Facebook needs us to do is it doesn't accept top level domains, so we cannot use localhost. And to fix that, what I did was add an entry called microflow.dev in my local hosts. I'm sorry, the local DNS resolver file, which is etc hosts on Linux, and a similar file on Windows too, and it points to my local computer. So uh, that should that has fixed the issue with the invalid URL. Now when I now when I go to microflow.dev or Facebook, it it asks, do you want to give this guy access to these things? And if I click OK, uh, Facebook gives us a token which UberAuth uses to get all the uh, desired information. So what I've done here is I've added let me close all these buffers and open up auth controller. And uh, in auth controller, UberAuth calls a method called callback, and uh, it sets up the UberAuth auth in the connection assigns to with the proper information. So what I've done is I've pattern matched it and extracted it, and we're just printing it out on the terminal, and we're just showing a text message called yay. So we see the text message. Now let me go to the terminal, and if you look at the terminal, uh, it has credentials and something called user with the email and ID. So that's what we need. So what I'm gonna do here is um, uh, use the auth to actually create a user. And if the user is already present, we just log the user into the application. So um, hmm. so at this point, uh, it would be a good idea uh, to fix the users table. So let us take a look at the migrations, and there is the last migration is create user. So it has a name, a username, a password hash. So we don't need the password hash because we're not going to do authentication ourselves, and we're not going to need the username. So we will have just the email and maybe the name, but for now I'm just concerned about the email and the Facebook user ID. So what we're gonna do is uh, I'm gonna run to rollback and change the migration because uh, so I'm assuming this hasn't been deployed to a production server. So uh, I'll just change the migration. So we have an email field and a Facebook ID field, Facebook user ID field, and that should do it. Yeah, that should do it for our users table. So we're going to on the migration, and we need an index on the email. and we need to go back to the user model and fix the schema here. So email and Facebook UID are the only things we need for now, right? So this looks good. Now when the user, so I'm gonna get rid of this, and what we need here is we need create or authorize, create or find. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a method called create or find, or let's call it find or create, and this guy is gonna take an email and a user ID. So email, well, it can just be an email and a user ID. So we could have just used one. Um, yeah, well, yeah, we need both if we want to create it. So, all right. So again, let's take a step back. We were in the auth controller, and uh, we wanted to create, find or create a user with the auth.user ID and auth.user email, right? If we find that user, then we're going to do something, and if we don't, uh, well, yeah. So I mean, if we reach this point in our code, it means the user has authenticated successfully, right? So at this point, all we have to do is make sure that we sign in the user, right? So anyway, let's do that, right? I mean, we need to create or find the user and then sign him in. So um, the way we do that is repo dot. So I'm going to create an alias here for the repo, and so repo dot get by user ID Facebook UID, right? So what do we want to get? We want to get the Microflow user, and we want to get it based on the Facebook UID, right? So if this gives us a user, then we do something. If not, then we do something else. So case, if it gives us nil, that means we need to create the user and return it. So repo.insert, I'm just going to create a user first. User is Facebook, UID is UID, email is email. So we're going to create the user, and I'm going to return it. And if we find the user, we're just going to return that user. So all is good. Now we have the user. Now what we need is we need to, like we said, make sure that we sign this user in. So we need to save this guy in a session, and then the later requests can then make sure that the session, check if the session is a valid user. So at this point, I'm just gonna inspect the user, right? Just log the user out on the terminal, and make sure that I can see that. So let's go back to auth Facebook, and there's a problem here. It says unknown key name for struct microflow user. So I think we didn't okay, so let me restart the server just to make sure we don't have any old code lying around. And it says in web view user view unknown key name. So web view user view unknown key name. So just gonna comment this out for now, and we'll get back to that later. And there's a similar thing in user show. And there's something in web template user web template user. Wow. All right, come on. What? So web models user struct is undefined. Cannot. Yeah. So user. Just gonna say this is Microflow user. And if we do auth Facebook, it says key user not found in. Okay, so auth has credentials. So let's take a look at this. auth has credentials which ends here. It has extra, which, you know what, let's let's copy this and match those curlies to get the exact name. So that's the whole of auth, that's credentials, that's extra, that's info. So email and email is part of info, right? And finally we have the UID, which is part of the auth. So email is part of so auth info email and auth.id. That should do it, right? Bad request, no callback. Okay, so we'll fix that in a minute, but let's go back to auth Facebook. Key ID not found in auth. It's weird. We just saw that, right? Oh, it's UID, it's not ID. It is UID. So let's do this one last time. And undefined function user. Oh man. So let's put a quick alias here. Microflow user. Okay, so this looks good. Let's quickly open an IEX terminal, make sure we have a user. So microflow repo.get all microflow users. So now we have a user with my email ID and my Facebook UID. So that's a good sign. So you know what, we've actually covered a lot in this video. I'll Let's take a break, and then we'll wrap up storing this information and adding a few helpers to tell us if a user is logged in or if a user is not logged in. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.